You read an amazing book, and a week later, wait, what was the title of that again? What happened? Be honest. How many great books have you read? And then, not months later, but weeks later, you can't remember what they were about. That's not an IQ issue. It's called passive consumption. So remember this. In the age of overload, the winners are not going to be those that read the most. It's the ones who remember and apply the most. I'm Liz Moyer, Doctor of Strategic Leadership. As an Air Force officer, I've worked at the Pentagon, deployed around the world, commanded a unit, and worked with Joint and Special Operations commands. I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed. And I've also heard the phrase, leaders are readers. So, in the next few minutes, I'll give you a learning system that actually works. It contains three parts and it's stolen from Air Force operators. Step one is going to be active recall. Think trying to pull information out. Step two is spaced repetition. This helps you really lock in those processes. And step three is the Feynman technique. See the spelling, but pronounced like Feynman, where you prove you actually understand. Stay till the end because I'll show you how AI can help you implement this. When I started my job working in Joint Special Operations, I was pretty inundated. I had to learn a lot of information quickly. The issue was I would go home, I would take a regulation, I would read it, and then the next day it felt like nothing had stuck. So a senior mentor who was a Navy SEAL said, learning like a student, I want you to think like an operator. Here's the key difference. Operators, they don't collect information, they integrate it. Think about it. The outcomes depend on them having to integrate it. This is where we went over this three-step process. As an example, when I took home this joint publication, after a chapter, I would close it, physically close it, and then ask, what were the three big ideas? I'd take a sticky note and go, okay, I'm going to write those down. And what that was doing was pulling information to strengthen the neural pathway. I mean, you can practice it right now. Press pause, get a sticky note, and say, what is one big idea that Liz has said in this video? Step two, when I go to the paced repetition, this is where I potentially talk to a coworker and say, hey, I learned about Joint Pub 1-0. I know, sound like a nerd and everything, but did you know that this is a core function? I'm forcing my brain to recall something 1 days, 3 days, 7 days later. And it's realizing, oh, I can't just dump this information. I need it. And finally, step three is the Feynman technique. I once had a general officer say that if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. So, taking this complex topic, I could explain it to a friend who wasn't in the military or to one of my nephews and say, hey, this is how we deploy individuals. Does this make sense? And then help them to fill in the gaps. You see, so often we think about reading and we view it as performance. Oh, I read a chapter or I did this instead of thinking about learning being a relatively permanent change, something that we take little micro hacks at. And the key thing is that sometimes it is going to be quality over quantity. 2 focused minutes can beat 30 distracted minutes. Now, where does AI come in? One of my favorite things to do when I'm coaching or working with a client is to show them how AI can be their wingman. We do this when it comes to trying to retain information. Well, here's 3 steps to lay out. First, you want to teach AI how you learn. It's going to be your interests and style. Second, then you want to put in the content that you're looking at. Maybe it's an article or report, and it's going to understand what you're referencing. And then third, you do that recall drill. You think about the one big idea. You get your sticky note and you really make yourself sit there and go, how am I going to implement this? So let's walk through each step together. Here's my first prompt for step one. And this is to help it understand my learning style. I'm going to respond via the voice because it's so much faster. My interests, I do like softball. I played it in college and I also have an understanding of the Air Force. My preferred learning style is auditory. I like simple analogies. I typically enjoy using commute time to learn. And then the next article that I want to learn about is on neuroscience when it has to do with actually how to increase retention of reading. Now, it has captured my information and then I have put in the article that I want. In this case, I actually, because I have a new baby and we'll be thinking about reading to it. And then as my child develops, thinking about what do they need to grow and develop and learn, I'm focusing on that art. The response has both key takeaways and then questions. Remember, the key takeaways is that simple analogy style that I like to be able to digest the information. And now the questions, those are helpful for me once again because it's going to be auditory. Let's move to step two, where we want to go through that three-step process I just talked about, which was the active recall, the spaced repetition, and the Feynman technique. So within seconds, it's shown me how to do active recall, spaced repetition for me to lock it in on day one, day three, day seven, and then the Feynman technique. I really like this. Explain how reading works in the brain using softball metaphors, as if you're telling a 12-year-old who loves softball. And what's so wonderful about this is if you do feel like you're learning something new and your brain doesn't understand and it's trying to draw those connections, now the wingman has helped you draw those connections. Because when I first looked at white matter highways, I was a little bit lost. But if I could think about that as a base path, well, now it makes sense. It makes sense to me. So, what I want you to think about is what is your knowledge expertise? And then how can you relate that to help you better learn? Using these two prompts really changes the game. Anyone can go from being a passive consumer to an active operator. So go ahead and pick one article that you want to read this week. Paste in those prompts to follow the process and then watch yourself actually absorb some information. One of my favorite things is hearing people's success stories and sometimes challenges with using AI. Please drop a comment below and let me know how I can help you on your journey.